Prometheus is a deity in Greek mythology. The legend says he was very wise. He once stole fire from Zeus, the king of the gods, and taught mankind how to use it. Zeus became so angry that he tied Prometheus to a hill. He sent an eagle to punish him. This eagle would tear Prometheus' belly and eat his liver. But this wound of Prometheus would heal again. The eagle would wound again, remove the liver and then eat. Prometheus was in pain all the time. But Heracles, the hero of Greek mythology, rescued him. He is also called Hercules in Roman mythology. He saved Prometheus from this torture. In this story, Prometheus suffered a lot of pain, but he never once apologized to the gods for helping humans. That is why Prometheus became a symbol of humanity, resistance, and adherence to one's principles. This hero of Greek mythology was the ideal of a great philosopher, just as Prometheus challenged other gods. This philosopher challenged the earthly gods of the time. He tried to show the way of salvation to the poor. Like Prometheus, he suffered a lifetime of pain. He also went through exile, imprisonment, the deaths of his children, and the torments of poverty. But he never regretted them all his life. Instead, he fought for the revolution. This great philosopher is known to the world today as Karl Marx. In this video, I'm showing you the biography of Karl Marx. My curious fellows, this is the city of Trier in western Germany. It is located in the Rhineland near the borders of France and Belgium. It is a very green, mountainous area. Karl Marx opened his eyes on May 5, 1818, in a three-story house on a narrow street inside the city. When Karl Marx was born, Europe was in the grip of revolutionary sentiments. People in Europe wanted revolution. This revolutionary fervor spread because of an event. This event took place 29 years before Marx's birth. A great revolution had taken place in Germany near France. The revolution overthrew the Bourbon royal family that had ruled France for centuries. The revolution also ended the monopoly of the religious elite in France. This group had collaborated with the royal family to exploit the people for centuries. The whole of Europe was affected by this change. This revolution impressed the people of Europe. They also wanted political changes in their own countries like France. Kings of the European countries were also worried. They noticed that nobody could stop the killing of French King Louis XVI. They were afraid that they might face the same punishment. They were right in their thoughts. The French revolutionaries had indeed beheaded King Louis XVI and his wife. This was the atmosphere in Europe in which the people of European countries had started various movements. These movements opposed the kings and the elite classes of Europe. A large number of Europeans, especially the working class in factories, had joined these movements. These people were fighting for their rights. They were challenging the authority of the monarchy and the church. They demanded representation in the assemblies. They also demanded the government to lift the ban on media and complete freedom of speech and writing. The people wanted to limit the authority of the kings. They demanded to involve people in political decisions. In other words, the 19th century was actually the century of the evolution of democracy and liberalism in Europe. So that was the atmosphere of the revolution in Europe in those days in which Karl Marx was born and grew up. It was the effect of the revolutionary atmosphere that made Karl Marx a revolutionary philosopher. Marx's family background also played an important role in his revolutionary training. Marx's family was ethnically Jewish and had lived in Trier for a long time. Marx's ancestors were the rabbis of the Jews, and that was their profession. But Marx's father left the family profession to pursue a career in law. He was a brilliant lawyer and he became quite wealthy. He also had good relations with the upper classes of Germany. At that time, it was common throughout Europe to hate and discriminate against Jews. They made special laws against Jews to degrade them. In 1815, Marx's parents also faced this discrimination. The state of Prussia ruled over Rhineland and Trier. Prussia made a controversial law against Jews. This law banned the Jews from the German high society. This law was a big hurdle in the progress of Jews. Because of this law, Karl Marx's parents now had only two options. They could leave the country or convert to Christianity so that the restrictions imposed on them could be lifted. Karl Marx's father Heinrich chose the second option. He converted to Christianity. But he did not follow Catholicism. Instead, he became a Protestant Christian. This was because he believed that the Protestants were more liberal than the Catholics, although the Catholic sect was in the majority in Rhineland and Trier. The Protestant population was very small, but Marx's father considered it appropriate to adopt the Protestant sect. Despite his conversion, their Jewish background always troubled them. The German society still did not like them. Thus, from an early age, Marx developed a rebellious attitude against religious discrimination. In addition to this religious discrimination, Marx inherited revolutionary ideas from his father. Because his father was also influenced by the French Revolution, he was struggling for a peaceful democratic revolution. He also joined few revolutionary organizations and participated in their activities regularly. Marx's father also had a library at home. He stored books of Rousseau, John Locke, and many other great philosophers in his library. In the same library, Karl Marx studied the Greek and Roman mythologies. Probably here he also read the story of Prometheus. This story developed a passion in him to serve humanity. So Karl Marx developed his revolutionary thoughts at home. Although he was more naughty than a revolutionary as a child, he used to annoy his sisters very much. He would ride on their shoulders and force them to run. He made mud cakes and asked his sisters to eat them. Karl Marx's parents did not enroll him in school until the age of 12. They taught him at home, but when he started going to school at the age of 12, he realized something new. He noticed that the world was a harder place than his upper middle-class home. Then, as he grew up, he was sad to see the plight of the poor on the streets. At that time, industrialization had begun all over Europe, but there was little industry in Trier. The region's economy was still based on agriculture. There were large vineyards around the city, and most people worked in those orchards. The city lagged far behind other German cities in development. That is why poverty and unemployment were a bit higher here than elsewhere. There were even beggars and prostitutes in the city. 1/4 of the city's population was forced to become beggars. The people of Trier wanted to get out of this poverty, but there was a problem. The government and the capitalist upper class had become an obstacle to their development. The government was raising taxes on the poor, while the rich who owned these gardens were unwilling to pay them well. As a result, the income of the poor was declining and inflation was rising. Common people were getting poorer, and the rich were getting richer. Such a great injustice in the distribution of wealth disturbed Karl Marx. Another thing that Karl Marx noted in his city was more important than the unfair distribution of wealth. He felt that the poor people were anxious to get rid of the slavery of the rich class. They were also struggling for it. The city of Trier was very close to France and was greatly influenced by the French Revolution. That is why many small revolutionary organizations were active there. But these organizations were afraid of the government, so they worked in secret. Because this was a time in Europe when it was a crime to talk about democracy and raise objections to the monarchy. Those who did so were branded as rebels of the state and arrested. That's why the workers and students formed their own secret organizations. These revolutionaries wanted political change in the country. Two ideologies, socialism and anarchism, were also gaining popularity in Europe. Supporters of the socialist ideology wanted a government that protected workers' rights. Anarchists said that the state was unnecessary. They thought that no one should rule over humans. They wanted to let all human beings live freely. So these two ideologies were becoming popular in those days. The government kept a close eye on all those who wanted revolution. Educational institutions and offices were closely monitored. Police raided secret meetings of the unions and arrested students, teachers, and other revolutionaries. Police also confiscated all the anti-government literature during these raids. The religious class was also supporting the monarchy. The church preached against the revolution and taught the people to obey the king and the church. The city's archbishop delivered strong speeches against socialist philosophers such as Street Simon. He preached to people to stay away from Street Simon's philosophy. But in spite of the king's oppression and the clergy's sermon, revolutionary ideas were slowly spreading in the city. When Marx set foot in school, he also experienced this revolutionary situation. The school principal, most of the teachers, and the students also supported revolutionary ideas. That is why this school was also included in the list of secret police, and people in plain clothes monitored it. Police also raided the school and arrested students and teachers. But in school life, Karl Marx never took part in revolutionary activities. His revolutionary ideas appeared when he went to study law and philosophy at the University of Bonn. It was here that his rebellious attitude was disclosed. He also spent some time in a jail. 17-year-old Karl Marx at the University of Bonn had changed a lot. He had become accustomed to drinking alcohol, squandering his parents' earnings, and borrowing money from friends. He formed a gang of drunkards, the Tavern Club. Karl Marx was the co-president of this gang, and this gang was notorious for spreading chaos and fighting. Once Karl Marx was caught red-handed. He was drunk and making noise at the university. Bonn University had set aside a small one-room jail to punish drunken students. The student who was to be punished was locked in this room for 24 hours. The university authorities locked up Marx in this room. But Karl Marx's friends, somehow, joined him in the room. They all played cards and drank beer all night. The authorities released him after 24 hours. But he didn't change his attitude. While in Bonn, he also missed trial because his red-haired, green-eyed friend Jenny lived there. Marx loved Jenny since his childhood. He also wrote poems for her. He also promised to marry Jenny. But then Marx suddenly stopped writing and took up arms. Marx joined a revolutionary organization at the University of Bonn. There were many student organizations in the university. Some of them were pro-revolution, and some were anti-revolution. The largest and the most powerful anti-revolution organization was Borussia Corps. The students of this organization used to attack the supporters of the revolution. They also targeted Karl Marx and his organization. So Marx kept a pistol with him for self-defense. He also instructed his fellow students to keep weapons. He asked them to use these weapons for self-defense. There is a less popular incident that took place in the university during this time. A student from Borussia Corps challenged Marx to a duel. Dueling was a tradition in Europe. Arch rivals challenged each other in this way. Only one person could survive in these duels. People used pistols or swords in duels. You must have watched such duels in Western movies. In these duels, two people stood with their backs to each other and guns in their hands. So Karl Marx's duel was also a sword fight. Marx's life was in danger because his opponent was a trained person. Marx participated in this duel, but luckily, nobody was hurt. Karl Marx suffered a wound to his left eye, but the people intervened and ended the fight. So Karl Marx was lucky to survive. But when the news of this duel reached Marx's father, he was shocked. He wrote an angry letter. In the letter, he objected to the duel. He also asked if the duel had any relation with the philosophy. He ordered Marx to stay away from such follies. He warned such events could be fatal for Marx and his parents. Marx ignored his father's advice. He continued his activities as before. Marx once visited the city of Cologne. He also took his pistol with him. Police in the city recovered that pistol from him. The pistol was illegal, and so Marx was in trouble. Police arrested Marx and brought him to court. There was a chance that Marx would be jailed for a long time. This imprisonment could end all his revolutionary plans. But it was Marx's father who rescued him again. Marx's father was a successful lawyer, and he had relations with government officials. So when Heinrich Marx learned that his son was arrested, he took immediate action. He gathered information about the judge who was hearing Marx's case. He even wrote a letter to the judge with his introduction. He asked the judge to pardon Marx's crime. The judge accepted this apology and did not proceed with the case. Thus, once again, Karl Marx's life and time were saved. The first year of young Karl Marx at the University of Bonn was very troubling for his family. His father frequently received complaints about him from the university. Marx's father did not like Marx's friends at the University of Bonn. He thought Marx's friends would destroy his life. So he made a difficult decision to remove Marx from the University of Bonn. He decided to send him to Berlin, the current capital of Germany. Through Heinrich's efforts, Marx was transferred from the University of Bonn to the University of Berlin. He began to study law and philosophy at the University of Berlin. In Berlin, Marx left his old habit of making noise and fights. Now his revolutionary sense was fully developed. Now he was beyond the age of a young troublemaker and wanted to do something big. He wanted to form a system that would benefit all of humanity. But many issues about this idea were still unsolved. The first question before him was how to determine the role of religion and God within human society. The second question was how to challenge the censorship restrictions imposed on the media or newspapers in Germany. And then how to establish a free press, a free media? The third question: what should be the role of the working class in an ideal society? It means that where the working class stands in a society. Along with these three questions, there was also the fourth and final question. Fourth question: what profession would he take up after leaving the university? Because just reading philosophy was not enough for life. His father had also died in the last days of his education. Now his mother was facing the financial burden alone. She was waiting for the day when Karl Marx would finish his studies and earn money for her. Karl Marx had also promised to marry his girlfriend Jenny. Jenny's father had announced his terms for the marriage. He asked Marx to complete his study before marriage. In this way, all the channels of life stood together in front of the young Karl Marx. He had to complete his studies. While he was an average student, he wanted to find a job, but he was against capitalism. How did Karl Marx overcome these challenges? And then why did he leave Germany? We will talk about all this, but in the next video of this mini-series.